After thorough testing, I recently changed my everyday OC spray to Palm Personal Defense Spray. It's nasty stuff, and I recommend it highly. Hey everybody, Active Self Protection Extra today. I have a real treat for you, something that's maybe a little out of the normal for us, but I think very important. With me today, Alan Beck, who is representing George Young from Young versus Hawaii. And man, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us about this. I think this is pretty important, this challenge to Hawaii's prohibition on carry.
Thanks, John. We have right now I'm working on what should be the last round of briefing. The case was stayed pending the outcome of New York Rifle and Pistol. And as I'm sure you know, just a few days ago, New York Rifle was ruled upon. Unfortunately, we didn't really get a ruling that was dispositive of the Second Amendment issue because the case was remanded back to the Second Circuit to be determined on some procedural issues. The past year has been sort of a lot, it's been a bit of a waste of time. But the point is, we filed a motion the day that the case came out and to ask the Ninth Circuit to unstay the Young litigation. And they've done so. What they've done is they've asked us to file a supplemental briefing for everything that's happened in the past couple of years. And, there's been a lot of Second Amendment cases.
So I don't think a lot of people understand this case at all. So let's back up a little bit and give folks the beginning of where this came from. Because obviously George Young, Vietnam veteran, and wants to carry a firearm in Hawaii County.
Yes.
He lives on the Big Island.
Yes.
And has been denied not just concealed carry, and Peruta for now has been stayed and said, no, concealed carry is not the enumerated right in the Second Amendment. Well, if you got two choices, concealed or open carry, so then George applied for an open carry permit in Hawaii County and was denied because he's not a security guard. And as far as anybody knows, Hawaii County has, as far as anybody knows, never issued a concealed carry permit to a private citizen. And so he's functionally denied his right to keep and bear arms outside the home. And that's basically what the lawsuit entails. Yeah? I got that right?
Yeah, that's correct. This is actually George's third lawsuit on this exact same issue. He's been pretty persistent about this. He's filed functionally the same lawsuit after Heller, a case called Nordyke, and McDonald. And basically what happens every single time the legal landscape changed. Actually, I shouldn't get too technical here. A point is that he was allowed the opportunity to file 3 federal lawsuits saying his Second Amendment rights been denied due to him, basically the county of Hawaii, just simply having a flat ban on handgun carry. And he did those cases pro se, which means he was his own lawyer, which is actually quite an endeavor if you really think about it. I mean, his
to learn all that, to do all that.
Yeah, he's a retired infantryman, enlisted infantryman. Then worked as a armed security guard at the airport, and I mean, his life he's had a few other positions, but I mean, his life has been carrying a firearm. And he decided to study the law on his own because he just didn't think it was right that not only himself, but everyone in Hawaii is just had their Second Amendment rights eviscerated. So what happened was he filed his third lawsuit, and like his other two, he was thrown out of court without the opportunity for him to be allowed to even attend court to make his case. They just said, it's impossible, you're going to win, so get out of here. Yeah. Well, I decided, I lived in San Diego, but I originally started working in my career in Hawaii, and I decided, what the heck. I'd done a 1-2A case before, and I'd had a little bit of communication with him. So I decided I was going to help him with his appeal. That was in December of 2012 that I agreed to that. And I filed notice of appeal in December of 2012. And I've been working on this appeal, ever since. That is a lot longer than normal. In
Yeah, no
fact,
kidding. 8 years now?
yeah, that is the longest appeal in the Ninth Circuit by far. Um, I I can I can speculate on why that is, but the point is that we're hoping to get this. We went in front of after about 6 years, we had the opportunity to finally argue our case in front of a three-judge panel,
Mm-hmm.
and we were victorious there. We won 2-1. Um, because of that, the same thing that happened in Pruda happened to us, is that the Ninth Circuit asked to have the full court. That's what in banc means, in front of the full court.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Latin, right? But in the Ninth Circuit, it's unique because it's so big that instead of having the full court, all 28 judges, rule on whether to go in banc, but then they, randomly select 11 of those judges to represent the Ninth Circuit in banc. And the difference between this case and Pruda, beyond the actual legal arguments, it's just sort of the practical consideration. We've had a shift in the Ninth Circuit because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has, I want to say, appointed 6 people to the Ninth Circuit. I don't quote me on that. It's rough. I think that's right, but
Mm-hmm.
that's off the top of my head, and that's changed the composition of the Ninth Circuit considerably.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's still slightly more Democrat appointees to Republican, but it's gone. It's that's just by 1 or 2 judges compared to whereas before it was considerably swung left. So
Yeah.
a very good chance, because it's the random draw, that we're going to see a little bit more favorable outcome than before. And also, there's also just the legal issues are much different because, one, they can't box us in on the concealed versus open carry like they did in Pruda, because my client has applied for both, and we're challenging both aspects of the statute. Whereas in
Right.
Pruda, it was just concealed carry. And our case is distinguishable from all the other jurisdictions that have been upheld in terms of May issue. Basically, right now, we have Maryland, New York, um, New
New Jersey.
Jersey, and Massachusetts as the 4 May.
California.
Well, no. These are the 4 May issue jurisdictions that have been upheld in court.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas
Okay.
California is distinguishable because they hung their head on the concealed carry issue. Um, so that's the first, second, third, and fourth circuits have upheld May issue jurisdictions. And the DC circuit, which is the same circuit that Heller came out of, has overturned their May issue jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ninth Circuit will likely be the last circuit that to weigh in on this matter. And because Pruda just simply weighed in on the concealed carry aspect of a quote unquote May issue, licensing scheme, it didn't rule on whether just having a May issue scheme is constitutional. Now, then there was more, which was Illinois, and that dealt with the no issue jurisdiction. Illinois, by law, had no mechanism for carry. And
Right.
so there is something called a circuit split between DC and the 4 jurisdictions I mentioned. What we're arguing is that we don't enter into that circuit split. We're more like the Illinois case rather than any of these other ones, because for 2 reasons. One, as you mentioned, there's been 0 permits issued in at least the past 20 years. The state keeps records back to 2000, and the county of Hawaii has not issued a single permit. So
Wow.
just because you have a law in the books that says in theory you could issue does not, what's that matter if in practice there's no
Right.
issuance policies? So in addition to that, say what you want. I litigated one case in New Jersey. And so I've got a basic understanding of the licensing scheme out there, New York, etc. There is a process to apply for a permit out there.
Mm-hmm.
There is no process in Hawaii, in the county of Hawaii. It's
so you can't
literally
even argue that we do have the means to do this because there's just no process for it.
well, I mean, you can apply, but there's no actual process. It's just the chief reads it, and in theory, he could issue one, but it's completely up to him. There's no guidelines. There's no appeal process. You can't say in New Jersey, if you disagree with the police determination, you can appeal that up to a court. And while it's extremely restrictive, at least there's some sort of procedural protection, just in case, the
If capricious, enforcement
exactly.
from the chief.
Yeah. So here, I mean, it's completely arbitrary, capricious standard. I mean, in practice, obviously, it's just used to deny people. But
yeah, I mean, you can't carry. I have a friend. She's one of my employees, so Le Rocher. She can't carry outside her home, and they live in Kaneohe, and she can't. She carries at home all the time, but she can't carry outside the home, and there's no way for her to be able to carry outside the home, and no process. And of course, that's egregious. So what do you think your guys' chances are now? Okay, so I know that the New York State Rifle and Pistol case was rendered moot because they changed the statute. They knew they were going to lose, so they changed the law. And so then by the time it got to the court, they were like, hey, this isn't even an argument anymore. Get this out of here. But on that dissension, it seems, I read, did I read it on that one, that Justice Thomas was like, we got big problems with this coming, and we got a bunch of Supreme Court cases that could be coming up here pretty quick. That, I mean, hopefully, of course, I want George Young to be able to carry a firearm in Hawaii County, so I want this to get done before that and them to agree. But what do you think? You think that's going to happen first? You think the Supreme Court's going to weigh in again?
Well, I think you referred to Kavanaugh, actually.
Kavanaugh was it? Yeah, I could be mistaken there.
Kavanaugh filed a concurrence with the decision to moot the case, and there was a dissent by two of the other ones. Alito wrote it, and he was joined fully by Gorsuch, and Thomas joined most of the dissent. But, you're right. I mean, I believe there's 11 cert petitions in front of the Supreme Court right now, several of them on the issue of carry. Now, we don't think that the court's going to stay it again because they've asked for briefing. They know what's going on at the Supreme Court. So they wouldn't have gotten the ball rolling. I mean, there's a very good chance that a cert petition will be granted in the coming weeks. But that's not dispositive of the second stay. And there's a lot to be said about the fact that the court is probably beginning to see that they just need to wrap this thing up at some point. And as a sort of more practical matter, they'd be able to incorporate the Supreme Court's decision, more likely than not, into whatever decision they made, because I'll be arguing, as of right now, it's scheduled for the week of September 21st for me to argue in front of the 11 judges.
Okay.
Now, they may very well take a year to write an opinion. So by the time that happens, the Supreme Court will have already ruled. So I mean, there's a lot of, but I don't know what's going through the judge's head, but I do know that they're trying to get the ball rolling, or else they would not have just immediately asked for additional briefing and amicuses to come, front of the court briefs to be filed on behalf of organizations.
So for George, who have you had amicus briefs by?
The Hawaii Firearms Coalition has agreed to file one. We had several in the last round. I'm still working on briefs, on seeing if people will file briefs this time. Last one, SAF filed a pretty nice one. Hawaii Firearms Coalition. Let's see. Gun Owners of America. I'm good friends with everyone over there, so I was really appreciated the help. and there were San Diego County gun owners. That's right. Uh,
Awesome.
yeah, John Dillon over there. He wrote a great history brief. So, and we had, geez, it's been about a year since I filed, since that happened. I'm trying to think, but we're reaching out to a number of different groups right now, and
Well, and I think to me, this is great reason for stuff like SAF and GAO. Like this is their bailiwick, man. This is where they shine, is getting involved in the legal process up close and personal for individuals. And tell me, Alan, I mean, so you obviously are connected to George Young pretty tight with this whole thing, and he's been after it for forever. You've been after it for 8 years now.
yeah.
What's his attitude right now? Does he feel hopeful that he's going to finally get some justice this time?
Yeah, I speak to him. I try and keep him in the loop throughout every aspect of this case. And, I've talked to him several times, and also because he was his own attorney in the trial court, I always want to be cognizant of the fact that, hey, he started this, and he should be aware of the legal arguments that are being made on his behalf. Especially, it's different when, someone's paid your retainer to go through the whole way, just and is just made explicit that how do I say it's like George wants to be a part of the process, so I
Right.
let he's always always keep in the loop of what we're doing, so he'll see a
Awesome.
copy of the brief before it gets filed. That's for sure, and I'm like that's okay before we do anything.
That's a heck of a client to have right there. Somebody that's that invested and involved and knowledgeable,
Oh, absolutely.
So we're going to be
And
looking. I mean, obviously, you get to make arguments in September. Could be a whole nother year before we see that come to fruition from there. And hopefully, we keep seeing the ninth maybe start making some better decisions with respect to the Second Amendment stuff. Because it seems like courts have completely ignored Heller in Chicago and McDonald versus Chicago to me.
Well, there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going to be happening in the Ninth Circuit. I've got a number of cases. This fellow by the name of Chuck Michelle has a ammunition case that he just struck. He's going to be up on appeal on a preliminary injunction, and we've got same fellow has a high capacity magazine case that's about to get ruled on. So the Ninth Circuit is not going to be able to hold the line forever. And with the composition of the Ninth Circuit having changed considerably, along with all the Second Amendment cases that are going up towards the ninth, you're going to see some give. I mean, at the end of the day, this is just sort of issue of Heller says what Heller says, and
yeah, and McDonald says, yeah, and the states need to listen.
Yeah. So I'm very excited, not just for my own litigation, but the litigation of others that are still trying to push this issue. And I'm not ready to give up. And I'm glad that George and a lot of my friends out in Hawaii aren't ready to give up either.
Amen. Well, I know this is expensive to do, and so if some of our watchers wanted to participate in that, you didn't ask me about that, but I'm sure it costs crazy amounts of money to do all this stuff. So if somebody wanted to donate to the cause, how would they do that?
I think the best way is to sign up for LaRue Tactical's mailing list. Mark LaRue has been generous enough to help us with fundraising, and every once in a while he sells. He does a fundraiser for us, and that's not constant, but he basically does a blast through his email list. So every 6 months. And also, if you're looking to simply support Hawaii firearms litigation in general, the Hawaii Firearms Coalition, I represent a couple other cases, and they this would be more for sort of lobbying purposes, rather than litigation. But they've been pretty at the forefront of lobbying the Hawaiian government to try and kill at least some of the gun bills. So I'd like to give them a shout out.
I mean, so obviously a donation at Hawaii Firearms Coalition will really help. I think California's still got a bunch of those. So San Diego County gun owners, Mike Schwartz and his team are incredible people and doing incredible work. So make a donation, right? And get on. I don't have any relationship with the folks at LaRue, but if they're doing good stuff for you, yeah, get on their email blast. And when he says, hey, we're doing a fundraiser, be a part of it, for gracious sakes. This stuff costs money. I don't make any money from that, everybody. That's not anything invested or involved. I'm not, getting paid to do any of this stuff. I just think it's interesting stuff for us to keep an eye on. So, well, Alan, man, thank you so much for the time. And I want you to keep us in the loop. I'm looking forward to hearing what happens. And ping me again, and let's talk some more the next time something big is coming, so we can keep people abreast. All right?
Sounds great. Thank you, John.